Hello, Duke fans. Welcome in to the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast, your daily podcast for everything Duke Blue Devils athletics every single day. My name is Hugh Strain, your daily host, as well as Duke beat writer at Duke Blue Devils on SI. Duke basketball searching for its ninth Quadrant 1 victory of the 2025-26 campaign. It will take on the Virginia Tech Hokies on the road on Saturday, January 31st at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Hokies sort of a middle of the pack sort of squad in the ACC so far, 16-6 on the season, 5-4 on the road. Blue Devils have been absolutely dominant to start conference play, 19-1 overall, 8-0 in ACC action, have won 5 of their last 6 games by double digits and their last 3 games by 20 or more points. Starting to look like another season where Duke runs the ACC in a season where that wasn't originally anticipated. Again, the ACC in 2024-25 was extremely mediocre for the most part, and it felt like the Blue Devils really had nothing to lose. And it kind of felt like they were walking on eggshells last season because every game felt like a slip up that could keep them out of the 1 seed conversation in the NCAA tournament because there were so many quad 2 or quad 3 games. That's not the case anymore. And still, Duke is absolutely destroying the competition here. Duke up to number 2 in the NCAA net rankings, which is one of the most important evaluation tools that the selection committee will utilize when determining seeding for the 2026 NCAA tournament. Duke is currently 8-1 in Quadrant 1, 12-1 across the first 2 quadrants, and 6-0 in true road games. Not many better resumes in college basketball than the Duke Blue Devils. Duke also 7-1 against ranked competition this season. But let's get back to Virginia Tech. So Virginia Tech, they have a lot of talent, but not a team that's really done a lot this season in the grand scheme of things. Right now, according to ESPN's bracketology, they're the projected last team in the field, or at least one of the last 4 teams in the field. Hokies have earned 1 Quadrant 1 win so far this season. That was against Virginia at home. Besides that, Hokies have yet to win another Quadrant 1 game. They are 1-5 in Quadrant 1, but 7-5 across the first 2 quadrants. They're 6-0 in Quadrant 2 games, a respectable resume from the Hokies so far this season. And this is a Quadrant 1 opportunity for Duke. Virginia Tech is currently number 54 in the net. This game coming on the road will count as a Quad 1 opportunity for the Blue Devils. Earlier in the week, Duke already had 9 Quadrant 1 wins, but with the way the net rankings change throughout the season, that can really go back and forth for how many Quad 1 wins Duke will have. Right now, they have 9 or 8 total. They're 8-1 in Quadrant 1. That can go back up to 9-1 like it was earlier in the week with a road win over the Hokies. Duke is obviously probably a more talented team than the Hokies. I don't think anyone would debate that. But winning on the road in league play is hard. We saw it time and time again throughout the past week. Michigan State barely got past Rutgers in the Big Ten earlier in the week. Michigan did get the win at home over Nebraska. That was a fantastic game. There have been plenty of these high major games where the home team clearly outmatches, or the road team clearly outmatches the home team, and still the game comes down to the wire. And Virginia Tech is kind of that type of team where, they're pesky. They have the talent. They just haven't necessarily stacked the wins together. But again, they are a projected tournament team right now. According to KenPom, they're 78th in the country in offensive efficiency, adjusted offensive efficiency. They're 52nd in adjusted defensive efficiency. And no bad losses for this Hokies team. They haven't really slipped up in a major way. According to KenPom rating, their worst loss is against Stanford, 69-68 at home. They've lost to St. Mary's, VCU, Wake Forest, Stanford, SMU, and Louisville. So out of those losses, at least 3 of those teams will probably be in the tournament. It's a pretty solid defensive team all around. They're very, very good at defending the 3-point shot. Teams are shooting under 30% on the season from the 3-point line against Virginia Tech. That's a top 20 rate in the entire country. And Virginia Tech, kind of one of those teams where, feels like kind of a perfect opportunity for Duke to kind of slip up. And again, this is a Quadrant 1 game, so it really wouldn't be that major of a hit on the resume if Duke were, say, to fall to Virginia Tech on Saturday. But again, it's one of those games against an unranked team that in the grand scheme of things will matter. but in the net rankings, it will still count as a quadrant one loss, at least as it currently stands in the net rankings. So at this point in the season, if Duke were to lose tomorrow, they would get net another quadrant one loss, which is much, much less damaging than a quadrant two loss. Quadrant two losses really, really, really hurt teams' cases for being a one seed in the NCAA tournament. But a win would give Duke its 9th quadrant one victory of the season as it currently stands. Now, could pose issues for Duke here is Virginia Tech is 12-1 at home this season. That's one of the best rates in the country, 12-1 overall for the Hokies. They have been dominant at home. That's where they took down Virginia Tech, one of their highest point totals of the entire country thus far. Again, a team that could definitely give Duke problems. Virginia Tech has won 3 of their last 4 games while averaging nearly 77 points per game over that stretch. Only one of those wins has come by double digits, however. Coming off a 71-65 victory at home against Georgia Tech most recently. Of those 4 games, the one loss came at Louisville, 85-71. Virginia Tech 5-4 in league play in the top half of the conference, and team that you really think kind of come down the stretch of the season. They have the kind of talent that could make a run in the NCAA tournament and, cement themselves as an NCAA tournament team. Right now they're in the picture, but as one of the last 4 teams in the projected field, that could really mean anything at this point of the season. But Virginia Tech has some talent on its roster. They're led by junior forward Amani Hansberry, who's been at 2 stops throughout his collegiate career. Started at Illinois, went to Tech, or West Virginia in the 24-25 season, mainly a starter with the Hokies. Didn't see too much time at all as a freshman at Illinois, but has kind of found a home here with the Hokies. He's averaging a career high 14.8 points, career high in rebounds at 8.5 per game, career high in assists at 2.7 a game, career high in steals at 1.6 per game. That's all on just under 50% shooting from the field and 33% shooting from 3-point range. 6'8", 240-pound big man will likely be Cameron Boozer's primary assignment, but regardless, we have no reason to believe throughout what we've seen this season that anybody can match Cameron Boozer. He has been elite. He's the best player in the country. If you go and watch yesterday's pod or a pod from a couple days ago, we talked about just how dominant Cameron Boozer has been this season, and it's going to remain that way if he continues this elite play. There is absolutely no debate for Boozer to take home the National Player of the Year award so far. He's 3rd in the country in scoring, 23.5 points per game to go along with just under 10 rebounds, 4 assists, just under 2 steals on 57% shooting, 37% from 3. Leads Duke in every major statistical category, excluding blocks. Been one of the most dominant players in the country, probably the most dominant player in the country. We have no reason to believe he's going to slow down here, but could be an interesting matchup against a guy like Amani Hansberry, who's found a bit of a home here with Virginia Tech. Another guy I wanted to touch on was Neoklis Avdalis. 6'9" freshman from Greece. He's an older prospect. Kind of came onto the scene in the beginning of the 25-26 campaign as a guy who could really be a star. In the second game of the season, he went for 33 points in an overtime win against Providence, and it felt like he was going to be one of those next international guys that come into college basketball and completely take over for, one of those smaller programs. He's kind of faded off a bit, averaging just under 13 points, 3 rebounds, just under 5 assists. 6'9", 215-pound wing, a guy that at the early part of the season was viewed as a guy that could definitely be a first-round pick in the 2026 NBA draft. We haven't heard a lot from him since really the first week and a half of the campaign. But again, a really talented player, a guy that can shoot from the outside, can score in a lot of different ways. His 3-point shooting has not been good this season, but he has the potential to hit the outside shot, and a guy that can defend at a really good level. So, one of those interesting international prospects that could pose issues for Duke. Again, played professionally overseas for a couple of years and then decided to head over to the college game in his 20s. But an interesting guy to monitor, and I think will be a fun matchup at 6'9" for Duke to handle. So Duke looking for its 9th quadrant one opportunity of the season, 12 p.m. tip-off for the Blue Devils against the Hokies. That is going to happen on Saturday. Again, Virginia Tech at 16-6 overall, 5-4 in ACC play. Duke at 19-1 overall, 8-0 in league play. Only undefeated team left in the ACC in league play. That is going to do it from us here at the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast. My name is Hugh Strain, your daily host, as well as beat writer at Duke Blue Devils on SI. Just like every day, we thank you so much for tuning into our show. We hope you'll check us out at si.com/college/Duke to keep up with everything Duke Blue Devils athletics every single day. My name is Hugh Strain, and I'll see you tomorrow.